Have you ever wondered how a woman ascended to the throne in ancient Egypt, a civilization known for male dominance? Today we're going to unravel the enigma of the female pharaohs, those rare queens who dared to rule as kings in a society renowned for its patriarchal norms. In the annals of ancient Egypt, a handful of women broke the mold and defied the gender norms of their time to assume the highest position of power. The most famous of these trailblazers was undoubtedly Hatshepsut, who ruled as pharaoh in the 18th dynasty of Egypt. Born around 1507 BC, Hatshepsut was the daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I. Her royal lineage was unquestionable, but the journey from princess to pharaoh was no easy path. For a woman to ascend to the throne was nearly unheard of, a concept that challenged the very foundations of the Egyptian societal structure. Yet, Hatshepsut was not a woman to be confined by societal expectations. From a young age, she exhibited a formidable strength of character and a keen intellect. Her education, typically reserved for the sons of pharaohs, was comprehensive and rigorous, preparing her unknowingly for her future role. Despite the obstacles, Hatshepsut's rise to power was as remarkable as it was unprecedented. Her name, which translates to foremost of noble ladies, was a testament to her extraordinary status. She was a queen who would soon be king, a woman who would rule as pharaoh, and a figure who would leave an indelible mark on the annals of Egyptian history. But the question remains, how did Hatshepsut, born into a society that favored male rulers, navigate her way to the throne and not just rule, but rule successfully? What made her one of Egypt's most accomplished pharaohs, and what legacy did she leave behind? So how did a woman born into a patriarchal society become one of Egypt's most successful pharaohs? Let's delve into the life of Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut, born to royalty, was not destined to become a pharaoh. In the annals of ancient Egypt, Hatshepsut's story begins like many others. Born to Pharaoh Thutmose I and his primary wife, Queen Amos, her royal bloodline was undeniable. Yet, as a woman, her path to the throne was far from assured. In a society where power was typically passed from father to son, Hatshepsut would have to navigate a labyrinth of familial ties, political alliances, and societal expectations. Her first step into the world of politics came when she was married to her half-brother Thutmose II, who inherited the throne after their father's death. Although she was now queen, her power was largely symbolic, and her role was primarily to support her husband and bear his heirs. However, when Thutmose II died prematurely, the royal lineage was thrown into uncertainty. His son, Thutmose III, was but a child, too young to rule. It was then that Hatshepsut found herself in an unprecedented position. She was named regent, entrusted with the responsibility of guiding Egypt until her stepson came of age. Yet Hatshepsut was not content to merely hold the reins until Thutmose III was ready. As regent, she tasted power, and it was a flavor she found she liked. She began to assume the symbols and titles of a king, gradually transitioning from regent to co-pharaoh alongside her stepson. This transition was not without controversy. Hatshepsut had to contend with a society that had never before seen a woman on the throne. To legitimize her rule, she claimed that the god Amun had chosen her to be pharaoh, and even had herself depicted in male attire in statuary and reliefs. In a bold move that shocked her contemporaries, Hatshepsut took the throne and began a reign that would last for over 2 decades. She was the woman who dared to be king, and her story is one of ambition, courage, and a relentless desire to rule. It's a tale that continues to captivate us, thousands of years after her death. Once Hatshepsut assumed power, she embarked on a reign that would be remembered for centuries. Hatshepsut, the 5th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, embarked on a rule that was nothing short of extraordinary. Her reign, which lasted for about 2 decades, was marked by substantial achievements that cemented her legacy as one of the greatest pharaohs of ancient Egypt. One of the hallmarks of Hatshepsut's reign was her extensive building projects. She was an ambitious builder, leaving behind a legacy of architectural marvels that far outstripped those of her predecessors. Her most notable project was the mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, an architectural masterpiece that stands as a testament to her vision and ambition. This temple, with its unique design and grandeur, was unprecedented in its scale and sophistication, reflecting Hatshepsut's desire to immortalize her reign. Hatshepsut's rule was not only marked by architectural grandeur but also by a period of peace and prosperity. Unlike many pharaohs, she did not engage in military conquests but instead focused on internal stability and economic growth. She established trade networks, improved agriculture, and undertook public works projects, all of which contributed to a period of peace and prosperity that was rare in ancient times. Hatshepsut's reign was also marked by remarkable expeditions to foreign lands. The most famous of these was her expedition to the land of Punt, a distant and exotic region rich in ivory, gold, and fragrant trees. The expedition, recorded in detail on the walls of her mortuary temple, was a testament to Hatshepsut's ambition and her desire to expand Egypt's influence and wealth. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Hatshepsut's reign was the way she portrayed herself. In a society dominated by men, Hatshepsut chose to present herself as a male pharaoh. In statues, inscriptions, and official portraits, she is depicted wearing the traditional pharaoh's kilt, the Nemes headcloth, and the false beard, all symbols of pharaonic power. This was not a denial of her femininity, but rather a strategic move to legitimize her rule in a patriarchal society. It was a bold and unprecedented move that further distinguished her reign. Hatshepsut's reign was a time of grandeur, peace, and prosperity. Her ambitious building projects, peaceful rule, and daring expeditions speak volumes about her vision and leadership, and her portrayal as a male pharaoh was a testament to her strength and determination to rule in a male-dominated society. Hatshepsut's reign was marked by prosperity and peace, but her death would lead to a bitter power struggle. Her reign was a golden era in Egypt's history, but her passing would plunge the kingdom into a period of uncertainty and conflict, a stark contrast to the peace and stability she had fostered. Hatshepsut died in around 1458 BC, but her story doesn't end there. In the wake of her death, a power struggle ensued. Thutmose III, who had been her stepson and co-regent, ascended to the throne. However, the transition was far from smooth. Thutmose III was determined to assert his power and legitimacy, and in doing so, he undertook a systematic campaign to erase Hatshepsut's name from the annals of history. Her statues were torn down, her inscriptions were chiseled off the monuments, and her name was scratched out of the royal lists. This was not just a matter of usurping power, it was an attempt to obliterate the memory of Hatshepsut and her unprecedented rule as a female pharaoh. However, Hatshepsut would not be so easily forgotten. Her tomb, located in the Valley of the Kings, was discovered in the early 20th century. The tomb was a treasure trove of artifacts and inscriptions, shedding light on her reign and offering tantalizing clues about her life. Yet the tomb also raised more questions than it answered. The mummy found within was not definitively identified as Hatshepsut until the early 21st century, and even then, the identification was not without controversy. The discovery of Hatshepsut's tomb ignited a renewed interest in her life and reign. Scholars began to reassess her legacy, and what emerged was a complex and intriguing figure. Hatshepsut was a shrewd political operator who navigated the treacherous waters of royal politics to seize power. She was a visionary leader who undertook ambitious building projects and expanded Egypt's trade networks, and she was a trailblazer who defied gender norms and cultural conventions to rule as pharaoh. Yet, the debate about Hatshepsut's legacy continues. Some view her as a usurper who seized power illegitimately. Others see her as a ruthless ruler, willing to erase her predecessor's name to solidify her own authority. But there are also those who celebrate her as a feminist icon, a woman who rose to the highest echelons of power in a male-dominated society. Regardless of where one stands in this debate, one thing is clear. Hatshepsut was a remarkable woman. Her reign left an indelible mark on Egypt, and her story continues to captivate us thousands of years after her death. She was a woman who dared to challenge the status quo, who dared to dream big, who dared to rule. Despite attempts to erase her from history, Hatshepsut remains one of the most fascinating figures of ancient Egypt, a woman who defied conventions to rule as pharaoh.